21. We'll now move on to the Vice Chair, Senate Bill 118.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Last year, under the leadership of this chairman, and especially the Lieutenant Governor of Maryland, we kind of crossed two Rubicons when it comes to road safety. The first Rubicon we crossed was a philosophical one. We agree that when it came to cameras in work zones, folks should be held accountable based on the danger they presented to society. And so if you're just going a little bit over the speed limit, you get a nominal ticket. But if you're going substantially over the speed limit in a work zone where there are, in fact, workers, the accountability would be much higher because the risk that you pose to society is much higher when you're doing that bad act. And so that was an important philosophical decision that we made last year, and in an overwhelming fashion. The second Rubicon that we crossed last year was a technological and administrative one. We realized that tiered fines were not difficult for speed cameras and those who administer speed cameras to handle, that the cameras could register which tier you are in, and those who manage the speed cameras could appropriately send out a ticket that reflected what tier you were in. Before that, we were unsure whether that was technologically possible, and what we have shown since then with the work zone speed camera bill that we passed last year is that that actually works quite well, efficiently, no technological issues, no administrative issues. And so the bill you have before you takes the model that we passed last year for work zones and applies it to traditional speed cameras that are not in work zones, that are instead in school zones or on major roads that are very dangerous, like Indian Head Highway, for example, or the speed camera that we passed for Baltimore County. I think Senator Hedelman sponsored a number of years ago. And so we take the model that we, I think, brought to pretty close to consensus last year and apply it to other dangerous circumstances, other dangerous roads. So let me talk about the tiers that are in this bill. Importantly for me, the lowest tier, which is 12 miles per hour above the speed limit, stays the same. And this was a bat signal to our constituents. It says, we are not in it to create revenue. We are keeping this fine the same. And what it also says is that everyone sometimes speeds, and we don't want a punitive fine at 12 miles per hour over the speed limit. I bet everyone in this room has accidentally just been a little bit thoughtless and received a speed camera ticket at about 12, 13 miles per hour above the speed limit. But the other tiers increase as the danger of the behavior increases. And I wanted to create these tiers with a logical nexus to what we did last year under the leadership of this chair and the lieutenant governor. And so the tiers that you see in the legislation equate to 70% of the work zone ticket. So the bottom tier is the same as what current law is. Every other tier is specifically tagged to the work zone bill at 70%. And so that's how we came up with the numbers in front of you. This is mainly for council, but there appears to be a typo in the draft that we have ordered amendments on. Judge Morrissey, to his credit, noticed it. On the third page, at lines 16 through 20, there are some brackets that were inserted. That was, I believe, done erroneously. Those brackets will need to come out to allow the district court to retain the discretion that it currently has. With that, Mr. Chairman, I would ask for a favorable report.
Thank you very much for this bill. It's a much needed bill. Our on 210, where we had a bill before us last year and we'll have it again this year. Since then, we've had people caught doing 140 miles an hour on 210. At that point, I really don't care about being punitive or not. I think that you do that. I don't care if the fine's $5,000. We've had I believe 20 other deaths on that street. And so I agree with what you're doing, and is this, as you remember, we worked out some things with the 210 bill. Your bill is not local, it's statewide, is that correct?
That's correct. But it is not mandatory. I think on 210, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, that camera is controlled by the county, so they would have the discretion to implement this, but would not be required to implement.
That is correct.
Yeah.
That is correct. Okay, I just wanted to find that out. Thank you.
Senator Sidnor.
Just to be clear, this bill would also affect school zones, right?
That's correct.
I may have some ideas or amendments to talk about because, and you may know, I mean, for a number of years, I've had issues with the way that some of our local jurisdictions have used the school zones camera program. And I really don't trust giving them authority to get additional money because they're abusing school zone
That are
speed
not
cameras.
particularly near schools. Right.
Exactly.
Yep.
That's the sole concern that I would have with increasing fees in this manner. And I've not been able to resolve that issue with local jurisdictions that are abusing with the authority that the state has given them for those zones cameras.
I share your concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator, for bringing this bill. And Senator Sidnor, you stole my thunder. We were on the same mind right there. Look. So regarding school zones, I want to pick up where Senator Sidnor left off. One is, would you be amenable to, because I have the same concern, we see them putting them in areas that are not directly impacting the flow of traffic in and around the schools, but they're looking at a high traffic volume and areas that would create more revenue. That's first. Secondly, does this still allow for, in those zones, for the fines to double?
So I'm not sure the current law for school zones, and I know Montgomery County structure is a little bit different. And I think Montgomery County, for the school zone cameras, there are specific hours in which they are active. Although interestingly, they still flash when they're not active to scare people to think they got a ticket, even though they didn't get a ticket because school is not in session. So I'd have to do a little bit of research. In Montgomery County, at least, I don't think the fines are doubled on the camera, but we can work all that out.
Yeah, I just have a question about that because
Yeah.
I know that was part of the dialogue with last year's piece of legislation. And then I just want to be clear on what I heard. You're saying that this fee schedule or fees that you set up in this bill are at 70% of the ones we did last year?
I believe so.
Okay.
With the exception of the lowest tier, which remains
was being the same. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Further questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, thank you very much. All right, we'll bring up the next panelists. So Mr. Grimes, Ms. Crone, Joshua Feldmark, are you?
Thank you,
And-
Chair Smith. Thank you, Senator Waldstreicher. I'm Seth Grimes with the Washington Area Bicyclist Association. Reckless and negligent driving takes a terrible toll on Maryland residents and visitors. Maryland experienced 553 road fatalities in 2024, 90 of them speed-related. Senator Muse mentioned Maryland 210, Indian Head Highway. I believe the figure is 95 deaths on Indian Head Highway since 2007, the vast majority speed-related. Traffic enforcement, if penalties are sufficient to provide an effective deterrent, is a key tool in taming reckless and distracted driving and speeding in particular. Speed kills. According to the Federal Highway Administration, quoting, studies clearly show that higher speeds result in greater impact at the time of crash, which leads to more severe injuries and fatalities, end quotes. But current speed camera enforcement fines are too low to provide an effective deterrent. The Maryland Road Worker Protection Act of 2024, which Senator Waldstreicher cited, does provide graduated speed camera fines for work zone speeding and is a precedent for this bill. Therefore, we urge you to advance SB 118. I'll add that Automated enforcement is far more equitable and inexpensive and scalable than in-person police enforcement, with no potential for dangerous escalation of traffic stops or discrimination against black and brown drivers. That said, traffic enforcement is no substitute for investment in transportation infrastructure that is safe for pedestrians, bicyclists, and rollers. Please advance Senate Bill 118 and continue to invest in safe pedestrian, bicyclist, and transit infrastructure. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman Smith and members of the committee again. My name is Christine Krohn from Schwartz, Metz, Wise, and Kaufman, here to testify on behalf of the Mayor and Council of Rockville. I don't have any additional information to add to what has already been said, just again that this is, aligns with Rockville's Vision Zero priority, and we urge the committee a favorable vote. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Joshua Feldmark. I'm here on behalf of Bike Maryland. We represent the cyclists across the state, from the most competent to the most recreational. Let's go is the opposite, I guess. And from kids riding their bikes to school to seniors. And it's good to be in front of this committee again. Congratulations to the two new members. It's fantastic to see you guys here. I don't have particularly anything else to add, so I will just say, me too. The faster cars going from a cyclist standpoint goes it from property damage to physical damage to death. And so anything we can do to just sort of keep that speed down, the better for us. So thank you very much.
Many of your organizations over the past few years, when legislation was introduced to decrease the school zone from a half mile to a quarter of a mile, opposed it and said that it would make the roads less safe. Again, if we're talking about penalizing and increasing these fees, with my concern being that the local jurisdictions do or use these programs appropriately, and not use school zone cameras as neighborhood cameras, what would you say, what would you think about an amendment to the bill making that modification?
I'm sorry, that was so funny. All three just turned in unison.
Well, so how about I take it, because no one else wants to. I think there's a discussion to be had, and I think you're right that there's some, listen, there are clearly some jurisdictions where the walk shed around the school might be larger than a quarter mile. I can think of some high schools in my legislative district, at Blair High School, where I attended, Kennedy High School, where the walk shed, because of the number of walkers, is a little bit larger than a quarter mile. I know of jurisdictions where clearly the jurisdiction is using the school as an excuse to otherwise create safety on another road, where that road might be high speed or dangerous, but where students are not actually crossing that road. We're JPR, and I think we're good at what we do, and I think there's a way to either adjust the distance or create some kind of specific finding that needs to be made by the school system or the county in order to validate the presence of a camera at a larger distance from the school.
I appreciate and love what I'm hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, I've got a question. There's a letter, and we'll hear from, I'm sure, MACO, but their support with amendments. Are you aware of their amendment?
I am, yeah. So MACO wants to have this kind of be where the counties can determine the fine up to the level that is created in this bill. I am open to that idea. It is, we have some tension here. Not tension, that's not, MACO would like this discretion. I would like to give it to them. But if you were to look at the work zone bill last year, they asked for such discretion, and we did not provide it. And so I want to be consistent with current law, with what we did in the work zone, even as philosophically I understand what MACO wants to do. And so I think we'll just have to make a decision as a committee.
So as a statement, I think that while they are both within the same subject, I think what has happened in the work zones and that kind of stuff is much different. And I think to give the discretion, so please
Makes
be
sense to
open
me.
for that. I think that you would win some support from myself if we were able to do that.
Sounds good.
So thank you, sir.
Further questions from the committee? All right, thank you all very much. Thank you. We'll now hear from Mr. Tippery and then Ms. Sample, Sarah Sample.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Chris Trippery. I'm the Director of Automated Enforcement for Montgomery County Police Department, and I'm here to ask for a favorable position on this bill. What we've seen over the past 3 years in our analysis is that speeds are increasing. We went from 2 years ago, speed camera violation at 35 plus miles an hour, 40 plus miles an hour, at 176 violations, and now we're up to over 260 to 280 in just 2 years' time. And with the graduated schedule, that's what we want that $40 to be in there because that's the educational piece. The lion's share of the violations are at the 12 over, the 15. Like I said, everybody makes mistakes. Sometimes you're a little too heavy on the pedal. Vice versa, as those speeds continue, there needs to be some additional education, some impact. We topped a speed on George Avenue in the Aspen Hill area at 103. Now, mind you, we can only put speed cameras in locations that are 35 and below. So you're talking 76 miles an hour in a 35 mile an hour zone. So going into those areas, if the speed limits are that low, that's why we're asking for this graduated fine schedule, because we need to have a greater impact on the community that we serve to bring those speeds down.
Good morning. Thank you to the chair and the members of the committee for having me today. My name is Sarah Sample. I'm from the Maryland Association of Counties, and we are here to support with amendment Senate Bill 118. We did have a chance to speak with the sponsor's office, and we're going to keep that conversation open. I'll share a little bit about some of the insights that we shared during that conversation with the committee now. We certainly appreciate this new tool in terms of combating reckless and negligent driving in our communities. As you've already heard, a lot of these are going to be school zones and residential areas where there are families and children. So we appreciate that. We think the new fines reflect the severity of the infraction. We're just a little bit concerned about the flexibility and wanting to make sure that we have some local discretion when it comes to any mitigating circumstances that might occur in these situations. So the things that we're talking about are things like first-time offenses or new drivers. We could also be talking about, we have some cameras where they are being effective and they're driving down violations, but we might have some problem areas where you're seeing just a lot of citations no matter what. And we like the idea that we could deploy this in a targeted way rather than a mandatory way, because while we appreciate the new penalties, we just want to be sensitive to the burden that it can put on residents when they're getting these citations. So for those reasons, we would support this with amendments on Senate Bill 118. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon. This is actually for Chris.
Okay.
Hi, Chris. Nice to see you again.
Thank you, you too.
Thanks so much for all of the work that you do. We really, really appreciate it. Picking up on a comment you made about speeds going up. So is this in areas, are you seeing it in areas and therefore you're putting the cameras in those areas, or is it even post-camera installation?
It's both. It's post-camera installation. We do an analysis, but before we do anything, we look at the crash data. We look at the severity of the crashes, the angle of the crashes. Then we look at, can we actually put the camera there? Is the roadway appropriate for automated enforcement? Do we have the distance? Is the environment around the camera going to be effective? Then we set up, we call them armadillos, but it's it captures everything we need to know. Speeds, distance, whether it's a turning vehicle, exactly what's going on at that specific time, and then the percentage. We always work with the 85th percentile. 85% of the vehicles that pass through that area have to be exceeding the posted speed limit by at least 12 miles an hour. If all those benchmarks are met, depending on where the roadway is, then we request, we have to do drawings and graphics and stuff to justify that to the state or the county to allow us to install that camera. Our program has gone strictly to a portable camera program because we like that flexibility that we can see. Put that camera there, we see the change in driver behavior. We're actually bringing those violations down. And if we see that maintained over a consistent period of time, we remove the camera, let traffic flow, and then we just spot check it. We'll drop a camera. The effectiveness of the program is you never know when the camera's there and when it's not. But we're able to touch more areas in our communities with the limited resources that we have in our camera inventory. And therefore, we find that we're more effective that way. But in where we're putting some of these cameras and where the community is requesting them, like the one on Georgia Avenue, Montgomery County DOT and the state did an analysis of that triangle area of Aspen Hill and requested that we put a speed camera there due to a couple of fatalities, pedestrian collisions. We put the speed camera on both directions on Georgia Avenue at different times. We won't go north and south on it. We just do one direction at a time. And it was effective, but that's where we're catching some of those high speeds. And that's what their analysis showed, is that basically the only thing that we can do with the infrastructure and the roadways that are there is automated enforcement. So that's, and we are having an impact.
Okay. And if I may, thank you, Mr. Chair. But even post cameras, you're seeing an increase in speeds, especially on that Georgia Avenue
Not
stretch?
as dramatically, no. The speeds don't get that high.
Okay.
Occasionally, somebody will want to test the system.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My apologies for brief indulgence. So thank you for coming out. And I mean, this may have actually been better for the bill sponsor because I was just looking through it again. But I'll ask you guys. When I'm reading the bill, it says that the school zone with a speed limit of at least 20 miles per hour. So as I recall, a lot of school zones, when children are present, reduce their speed to 15. So in reading this, would that mean that this is no longer not enforceable or allowed to be posted in those locations? And for purposes, it's page 2, line 11.
I can't speak for other jurisdictions, but we do not. We do not reduce when school's in session. We do not reduce to that limit. We maintain the 35.
And where are you at?
Montgomery County.
Montgomery? Okay.
Well, I can't speak for other
So
jurisdictions.
if we're talking about safety, my question is this. If we're talking about safety, you're telling me that when students are present and you know that there's foot traffic happening, you're not adjusting the speed limit as the law allows you to do to slow down the 3,500-pound projectiles that are zooming past the school. You're leaving the speed limit up at 35 miles an hour.
Our school zones where we have the cameras, the speeds aren't that
Pardon?
low. The areas our school zones are in are 35. So
I understand that. They're regularly posted 35. So when no one's there on a Saturday, what's the speed limit on that road?
it's 35, but we don't enforce on the weekends. State law only allows us to enforce during school days.
I understand that, but we're talking about safety. So me being safety-minded, I would look at it as, if you're worried about safety and you want to slow down vehicles, why wouldn't you lower the speed, which is already what is a tool that's available to you in the state law?
Because we're just looking to educate the driver, just like with any other.
You're looking to educate them, so you're looking to get a fine.
We're not looking for a fine. We're looking to educate.
How do you educate? By giving them a fine?
For some people, yeah, it takes the fine or the sight of the camera.
Well, that was a good answer. Thank you.
Because even all the driving app, Google Maps, Waze, they all have now tagged our positions. And driving here today, I passed through.
Correct, but that's my point. If people are using Waze or Google, it's already putting the locations in there where these cameras are. If we're talking about making this bill about safety, why aren't you lowering the speed limits to a 25 in what would normal while students are present instead of a 35? That would be safety related, because the difference between 25 miles per hour and 35 miles per hour, if they go at that set speed, is about I don't know, 15 and a half feet per second that they're traveling between the variance of those two speeds. So I just, if we're talking about safety, which is what I keep hearing, why aren't we looking to do that component of it as well? Especially in Montgomery County, because you guys got cameras everywhere.
We have camera locations everywhere, not cameras everywhere.
Okay. Potato, potato. All right. So we got cameras everywhere. We're just okay. So here's my concern with this piece, and that is we have SHA either coming in or they just came in, I don't remember, but last year they brought a bill in where they want to be able to have the bureaucratic autonomy to lower speed limits by 5 miles per hour if they so choose. You see where I'm going with this, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because
you reduce the speed to increase your revenue.
yeah,
look at that
and
from a
you know
revenue
who would be the
standpoint.
first county that would come to mind for me when that would happen? Montgomery, Prince George's. Like, they love to lower the speed. They love these things. When it's a line item, I'm sorry. When there's a line item in the budget, man, off revenues, off cameras, it's amazing.
Well, I can only speak for my county. I can tell you in my county, if a request came through the state or through the county to reduce the speed limit on a roadway, we wait a year before we go do our analysis. The county came to us and wanted us to put one on Shady Grove Road. We said, we'll talk to you in a year. Because it's not fair to the community that I go throw up, yeah, they reduce the speed, and I can put up a speed camera, but is that fair to you as the commuter that drives through that intersection every day or that roadway every day?
Well,
no, I'll let it soak for a year, and then we'll go back and let's see what the impact of that 35, going from 45 to 35, let's see what that speed limit change did over a year, and then we'll come analyze it.
I wish everybody had that same type of philosophy.
I can't speak for
I
everybody.
appreciate it. And then,
Trust me, we're studied by every federal agency out there. So.
you should be. You guys lower stuff all the time. You know that part of my issue is that Montgomery County started this whole thing where an element of lowering the speed limit in areas is that they have to do a traffic study. But Montgomery County found that it didn't require for the results of the study to be released or published. So, and thereby, they were able to hide whether it was necessary or not, and then they would lower it themselves. Because the law only required them to do a traffic study, it didn't require them to publish the results of such study or have crash data to support, because I heard that comment made somewhere up here that we do it according to crash data, and I'm here to tell you that I know that that is absolutely not the case, because I've got people that work in Montgomery County in this area who have said, we don't even release the data. We just have to do the study, and then we can lower the speed limit. Is that accurate?
No, not in my county.
In Montgomery County?
Most of our camera locations that are put in are at community requests. The police department very rarely puts in one so when the community member says, hey, I'd like you to come out and do a study, and then we'd like to see the results of that study, I'll send it to you.
Can you lower the speed limit even if the results of a study do not justify it? As long as you've done the study?
No, we don't use this. We don't use my speed camera study to lower speed limits, no.
I didn't say speed camera study, I said the traffic study. Because the part of the element for lowering the speed limit is a traffic study.
As we say, the answer is yes, they could.
Correct.
We don't.
Okay.
We let it soak for a year. We've had a community
What is your, I'm sorry again, what is your title?
I'm the Director of Automated Traffic Enforcement for the county police, for Montgomery County Police.
Okay. All right,
That's why we're studied, because we do such deep analysis that the feds are trying to create a standard, and they like our standard.
Okay.
We're under.
But you don't publish it?
It will be, well,
It will be.
They're trying to make it part of the.
Yeah, I would like to see that too.
Standardized
Awesome.
system.
Okay. And I guess that's it. I just really wanted to check on the school zone about the safety and, oh, I do have one more for Mako. What flexibility are you looking for exactly in this, to be able to do by county? Thank you for your answer, sir.
So currently, the bill says that the penalty is this new set amount, and we wanted to say may not exceed this new amount, so that we have discretion in situations where It might be a first-time offense for an individual. It might be a new driver, or we can deploy it in more targeted ways, where if we have one camera that's working great to drive down the number of citations in a certain area, but we have this one spot that is just problematic and those citations are going up and up, maybe we can deploy it targeted and not just a blanket larger penalty for all the camera areas.
So to be clear, what you're asking for is it to not to be able to go above this amount, but to be able to have it say not to exceed, to be able to have your own.
To land somewhere within the range.
Thank
And
you.
the other thing I would add to the prior questions is just when we talk about how many jurisdictions this affects, it's only about 9 that have these cameras in operation right now. And when it comes to who reduces the speed limit at certain times, I can get you that information. When we were talking about the school zone bill with Senator Sidner, I want to say it was 2 years ago, I put together a whole spreadsheet that basically showed all the jurisdictions, where the cameras are, which schools they're associated with. We've got a lot of information that we can share on that. And so I know that Director Tippery wasn't able to answer all that today, but I can share.
No, I appreciate it, and that's what I wanted to make sure of. I thought that's what you were getting at, but I don't know that I actually heard it, so I apologize. That's what I wanted to make sure. And Mr. Chair, with your indulgence, I just have one last thing, and it's for the gentleman from Montgomery County. I apologize. Who reviews your all's cameras for the issuance of citations? Are they police officers? Are they?
For speed citations, yeah, the requirement is a law enforcement officer has to approve a speed citation.
And that's the requirement, and that's the standard that you guys do?
Oh, yeah.
And as far as you know, with that standard, is that part of the, like I'm hearing you talk about, I guess NHTSA or the feds are looking at this as a model, right? Is that part of the model that they like to be consistent with for that law enforcement would still be the reviewers? Do you know offhand?
No.
You don't know?
They're looking at the scope of the program overall and then the drill down.
But as a part of that program that you guys have as a model, law enforcement review all citations for speed?
Yes, I mean,
okay.
The model we're providing is our
That's all I needed. Yeah. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So that involved, actually, that would be a great data point for us, because we have I know why you asked the question. If that is actually part of the analysis, that'd be great just to parse out for complying or adhering to the federal standard. If officer review is a core component or an essential component of that, that'd be very illuminating for us, because we're about to have that discussion in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
All right, Senator Love.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chris, don't I recall correctly, that's state law, right? That an officer must?
Yes.
Because I know it keeps coming, it's state law. It keeps coming up that people want to change it, I realize, but it's not just Montgomery County's program, it's state law.
Yes, we can
talk on the back. I'll let you know why that I know, but I just wanted to get that out on the record for those who are watching at home. Okay, thank you.
As it happens, it's my bill.
That affects my count.
Further questions from the committee? All right, thank you very much. Thank you. With that, that'll conclude the hearing for Senate Bill 118. We're now